I never thought I'd be humiliated inside a jewelry store of all places. Not after everything I've been through. But that morning, a woman in an emerald blouse and diamonds worth more than my truck snapped her fingers at the jeweler and demanded he stop helping me right as I was buying my dying wife her final gift. And in that moment, I realized just how cruel people can be when they think your worth depends on what you wear. My name's James Mitchell. I'm 62, a retired mechanic living in a suburban neighborhood called Riverside Estates, one of those places with manicured lawns, strict HOA rules, and people who think they own the air you breathe. My wife Margaret and I moved there 37 years ago, back when it was quiet and neighborly. But lately it's been run by Patricia Vanderbilt, a woman who believes control is the same thing as leadership. She's the kind of HOA president who fines you for planting the wrong color flowers, who sends passive-aggressive letters about aesthetic harmony. She made my life miserable, but I let it slide. My wife was sick, and I had no energy left to fight over stupid things like mailbox paint. Margaret, she was the kind of woman who could light up a room just by smiling. But cancer, it doesn't care who you are. By the time this story happened, she was in hospice care. Most days, she barely spoke. But one night she whispered that she wished she had a locket like her grandmother's, something to hold our wedding photo, something she could wear close to her heart when she was gone. I didn't tell her, but right then I decided I'd find one. I started saving $20 here, 30 there, skipping lunch at work, cutting corners anywhere I could. 6 months later, I had just enough. That morning I kissed her forehead, told her I'd be back by afternoon with a surprise. Then I got in my truck and drove 3 hours to a place called Chen's Fine Jewelry, the same store where I'd bought her engagement ring in 1988. I figured maybe the owner was still there. Maybe he could help me make something special. When I walked in, I heard the soft chime of the door and smelled the faint scent of silver polish. Behind the counter stood David Chen, older now, hair gray, but his smile was exactly the same. "Mr. Mitchell," he said, squinting like he was seeing a ghost. "Is that really you?" I nodded, choking up as I explained why I'd come. His eyes filled with tears before I even finished. He remembered us, remembered how I'd worked 3 jobs just to afford that little diamond ring. He brought out trays of lockets, silver and gold, round and heart-shaped. We talked quietly like 2 old friends. I told him about Margaret, about the hospice nurse, about how she still smiled even when the pain hit hardest. He promised he'd engrave it today, make it perfect. And that's when the door chimed again. You know that feeling when a storm walks into a calm room? That's exactly what it felt like. A woman strutted in mid-40s tall, wearing heels that could kill a man's dignity in one step. Her blouse was silk bright green, and she carried a Hermes bag like it was a weapon. Diamonds everywhere, her neck, her fingers, even on her watch. Patricia Vanderbilt, my HOA president. I froze. She didn't notice me at first, too busy clicking her nails on the glass counter, sighing loudly every few seconds. David kept helping me, showing different chain lengths, talking about engraving. I was holding a small silver locket, trying not to cry, whispering, "She'll love this one." But Patricia, oh, she wasn't having it. After 5 minutes of waiting, she snapped her fingers, literally snapped them. "Excuse me?" she said, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "I've been waiting here and I have an important appointment. I need someone to help me now." David, always polite, said gently, "Ma'am, I'll be with you shortly. This gentleman is finalizing a very special order." She didn't like that. Her head jerked toward me. I saw her eyes scan my worn jeans, my old flannel, my cracked boots. Then, with this disgusted little laugh, she said, "Really? You're making me wait for him. He looks like he wandered in from a homeless shelter." The store went silent. My chest tightened. I could feel my ears burning. My first instinct was to apologize because that's what I always did. "I'm sorry," I murmured. "I can come back later." But David, bless that man, placed a hand on my shoulder. "Mr. Mitchell," he said quietly, "you're not going anywhere." Patricia's face turned red. "Do you have any idea who I am?" she snapped. "My husband and I spend over $50,000 a year here. I don't think you understand how this works." And that's when something in me, maybe the exhaustion, maybe the grief, started to shift. For months I'd been shrinking, letting people walk over me because I didn't want trouble. I let Patricia fine me for my old truck. I let neighbors whisper about my dying wife's medical visits. I let the HOA treat me like an inconvenience. But standing there with my wife's last gift in my hand, hearing that woman reduce me to trash, something in me cracked. Still, I didn't say a word. David spoke instead, calm but firm. "Ma'am, we serve customers in the order they arrive. Mr. Mitchell was here first." You could see the fury ripple across her face. "Then I'll take my business elsewhere," she shouted, "and I'll make sure everyone in Riverside knows how you treat valued residents." She turned to storm out, expecting David to beg her to stay. But he didn't. He said, "Before you go, Mrs. Vanderbilt, let me tell you about the man you just insulted." Her heels stopped mid-step. She turned, chin lifted, like she was expecting him to apologize. "This man, David," said his voice loud enough for everyone in the store to hear, "drove 3 hours today because 37 years ago I sold him his wife's engagement ring. He remembered this place, remembered me. And now his wife is dying of cancer, and he's here to buy her a final gift, a locket to bury her with." You could feel the air get heavy. The young couple browsing rings stopped. The old lady on the chair started crying. Even the security guard wiped his eyes. Patricia's smirk fell away, replaced by something like guilt or shock. She stammered, I didn't know," and that's when I finally looked at her. I wasn't angry anymore, just tired. I said quietly, "You weren't supposed to know. You were just supposed to be decent without needing a reason." That broke her. You could see it. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. She tried to take out her checkbook. "Please," she said, voice trembling, "let me pay for it. It's the least I can do." But David shook his head. "Mrs. Vanderbilt, what this man needs isn't charity, it's respect." She started to cry, real tears, not the kind you fake for sympathy. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I was cruel." I nodded. "I accept your apology," I told her. "I just hope you'll remember this feeling next time." When I left that store an hour later, the crowd outside clapped. Someone had filmed the whole thing apparently, and the story spread fast. By the time I got home, Margaret was awake, barely, her eyes half open. I showed her the locket. "Do you like it?" I asked, my throat tight. She smiled, just a little, and whispered, "It's perfect." She wore that locket every day for the next 11 days. When she passed, I buried her with it. I thought that was the end of it. But fate, I guess, had other plans. Months later, I visited the hospice center where she'd stayed just to donate some of her things, maybe talk to the nurses. And that's where I saw her again. Patricia, the woman who'd called me a vagrant. She was sitting beside an old man, reading to him softly. No cameras, no attention. Just human. When she saw me, she froze. Then she stood, eyes wet. "I think about that day every single morning," she said. "I'm trying to do better." I looked at her for a long moment. Then I smiled faintly. "Margaret would have liked that," I said. "She always believed people could change." A few weeks later, I stopped by Chen's again. David had framed my old 1988 receipt and hung it on the wall. Beneath it was a small plaque that read, "Love is the only currency that matters." When someone in that store gets rude or impatient, he points to that frame and tells our story. Sometimes I think about how easily that day could have gone differently, how I almost walked out, how I almost stayed quiet forever. But life has a way of testing whether we'll stand up when it hurts most. Because kindness, it doesn't need to be earned. And dignity, well, you only lose it if you let people take it from you.